New Transformers live action trailer just dropped, and yes, I've already seen it. For those of you who are wondering, Zero Raptor, have you seen it? Yes, I've seen the trailer. I'm not going to do a reaction video on it because the last time I did a reaction video on any of the Transformers movies, I got copyright claimed. Thanks, YouTube. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, what this video is going to be about is breaking down the trailer and what my thoughts are on it. Now, when they announced that they were going to have a Bumblebee sequel, I was really excited because Bumblebee, I mean, it's not a great movie, but it's miles better than what we got with Michael Bay. So I'm okay with Bumblebee despite all the little flaws that I or issues that I have with it. I mean, it is kind of flawed on its own too, but as a complete reboot of the Transformers live action, I'm fully accepted of it. Paramount said that they were planning to make a brand new Transformers cinematic universe, which great. I'm down with the MCU style series of movies that focuses on each of the Transformers, or at least the main ones, because there's if they're focusing on just the G1 cartoon by itself, that's easily like 150 characters plus the Decepticons. So yeah, I don't think they're gonna be doing like standalone character movies like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing, but I mean, I'm down with like maybe focusing on like 3 or 4 per movie, which would be great. Starting with Bumblebee, I think Bumblebee is a great start to the new Transformers Cinematic Universe. However, when the news broke that they were gonna make a Beast Wars live action too, I was like, okay. Beast Wars is the Transformers that I grew up with, so I mean, a live action of that would be okay. They said it was supposed to be a spacefaring adventure, which, okay, fine. It's gonna be all CGI, no humans involved, so we don't have to worry about like the human side stories and stuff. And then they made the announcement that they're combining the story of the Bumblebee sequel and the Beast Wars spin-off into one movie. Um, okay. How is that gonna work? So, backstory. The original G1 cartoon trilogy was Transformers. Well, in the American cartoon trilogy, the Japanese cartoons they're all over the place. They're a little bit more haphazard than the American cartoons already are. But anyways, the original American Transformers trilogy was Transformers with the Autobots and Decepticons, Beast Wars with the Maximals and Predacons, and then Beast Machines, which we will never speak of ever again. So that was the original trilogy. So the new live action I think is going to draw from the original trilogy, which by all means as a fan of the classic Transformers, I've been waiting for years. Bayformers doesn't count. That is a very, very weird adaptation. And I always thought it was odd that they didn't really put a lot of effort into making each of the characters distinguished in the Bayformers. And supposedly the issue was that, oh, because the technology didn't exist to make like each of the Transformer characters unique in terms of their coloration. And I'm like, I mean, the first movie came out in 2007. I'm pretty sure CGI tech was proficient enough to render colors. I mean, in 2002, we already had Final Fantasy X and Kingdom Hearts with CGI that has pretty good realistic coloring. So I'm not sure I accept that as an excuse for why all the Transformers in the Bayformers looked kind of the same, aside from the Autobots, which, I mean, the colors looked fine on them, whatever Autobots they had. So yeah, not really an excuse. Anyways, the thing with Transformers, the original cartoon, and Beast Wars is they're part of the same timeline. The original trilogy was part of the same timeline. The problem is Beast Wars takes place 300 years after the original Transformer story ended. Because in Beast Wars, you have Optimus Primal, who's supposed to be descended from Optimus Prime. And then you have Megatron, the T Rex, took his name from the original Megatron, who is already gone by that time. So he just took on the name on his own. He wasn't descended from him, but he just like he thinks of himself as a worthy successor of the name. So for them to bring Beast Wars into the same timeline as the Autobots and Decepticons for the new live action reboot, I was like, how are you gonna explain away the two Optimuses? It's like you're gonna have two Optimuses, one Optimus Prime and one Optimus Primal, and then are you gonna have both the Decepticon Megatron and the T-Rex Megatron? Like how's that gonna work story wise? Because the only way I could see this working is you just take out the Beast Wars Predacons entirely and replace them with the original Decepticon Predacons. Because originally the Predacons were a subgroup in the Decepticon army, and that subgroup consists of like five characters that become this huge combiner named Predaking, which is not the same Predaking that you see in Transformers Prime. That's a completely separate character. Predaking, the original in G1, is a bit more impressive because, first of all, he's a combiner, so he's way bigger than Transformers Prime Predaking, and also I feel like that's a more worthy enemy for the live action Maximals to clash with. So yeah, that was a bit concerning that they were bringing the Beast Wars characters into the Autobot Decepticon conflict. I mean, if they get rid of the Beast Wars Predacon, they could technically fit. And then there was a whole issue where like the original Beast Wars, like they were supposed to be robots in disguised as animals, which have fur and a lot of organic materials on them. And I'm like, how are you gonna translate that to live action? And the way they did it was, I thought it was pretty clever, because like Optimus Primal, you see him in the trailer, like he has like clearly like patches of his covering for his like alt mode, his gorilla alt mode. It has like fur on it, or like maybe some sort of facsimile of fur, but like there's some fur on it, but it's like you could still tell that he's a very like mechanoid gorilla. So I thought that was a creative way to like balance out the fur along with like the robot part of it. And they did the same thing with Cheetor and everyone else too. So I thought that was, they didn't look creepy, which I was afraid of. I was like, you're gonna put fur, and then what happens when they transform? Because in the original cartoon, when the Maximals and the Predacons transform, like their like robot form has like parts that look like flesh, which I always thought was a little disturbing. It's because you're basically like flipping them an animal inside out, and it's like, oh, the insides are the robot, and it's like, no, I don't like that. So, anyways, I like the idea that they're going with. I kind of want to see the original idea of the Beast Wars characters going on like a space-faring adventure, but like this works too. I still feel it's a bit early to introduce the Maximals into the whole conflict, but I guess it's fine. This is their new cinematic universe that they're introducing. Confirmed, we have Optimus Primal, of course. I'm disappointed that they didn't get Gary Chalk to reprise him. I mean, the last time Gary Chalk did any voice acting for Transformers was like the Energon trilogy, and he was ironically Optimus Prime in there, which is kind of weird because everybody's been like waiting to see like Peter Cullen and Gary Chalk reprising their respective Optimuses in like a media scene, and to this day we have never gotten that, like, because Optimus Primal has been getting voiced by Ron Perlman. I mean, maybe someday we'll get it. Hopefully before either Mr. Colon or Mr. Chalk croaks. I mean, things have been looking very good for celebrities lately. Yeah. So we got Optimus Primal. Cheetor looks good. From what I saw, his robot form is like pretty buff, which he did end up being buff towards the end of the original Beast Wars, which I guess works out. Air Razor, I mean, they only had her in her beast form, but last I checked, she didn't breathe fire in the original cartoon, so that's a new ability that I wasn't expecting. So I don't know how that's gonna work. And apparently Rhinox breathes fire too. I'm like, what's with all the fire breath? Is everyone just turning into Grimlock at this point? I don't understand. Again, Rhinox looks great. I'm kind of surprised they managed to integrate his sharp teeth, because I always thought that Rhinox as a rhino is kind of weird for him to have sharp teeth in the original cartoon, but somehow they managed to make it work in the live action. So, okay. I can't wait to see how they look like in robot form, because so far the only Maximo that they've shown in robot form were Optimus Primal and Cheetor. And Cheetor, we only got to see the back of his robot form, so we didn't really get a good look at his face. But Optimus Primal, like his robot form looks. I mean, the silhouette is not quite the same as how he looked in Beast Wars, but it's he got his swords, so like they gave him his swords, and he does end up using it in a pretty cool way. So I'm appreciative of that. Now on to the Autobots. We got Optimus Prime, Bumblebee is back, and then we've got Mirage, RC, and supposedly Wheeljack is confirmed, but he wasn't in the trailer, so I don't know how he's gonna turn out. RC looks fantastic. She doesn't. She got totally shafted in Bayformer, so I'm glad she gets some redemption, and she kind of looks cute in here. In the original cartoon, RC was a car, so I'm a little disappointed to see her being turned into a motorcycle yet again. I mean, she's a motorcycle, so that means that she has to be small, but in the trailer they showed her pretty big, which doesn't make sense unless she's a car. So I'm wondering is like if she's gonna start out as a car and then switch to motorcycle form. Like that never really sat well with me when they made her into a motorcycle in Transformers Prime. It's like their mass does not work out if you're trying to keep their sizes consistent with their alt modes. But okay, whatever. RC looks great. That's all I can say. Mirage, I've been seeing a lot of people complain about Mirage because his original alt mode was a Formula Racer, which to be fair, they kind of had to change it for the movie because it wouldn't make sense to see a Formula Racer on a freeway. So him becoming a Porsche is fine. Like I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is the way they colored him. Like his main primary colors are blue and white. Of course, they made him blue and silver in here, but he also had like a bit of red, so that's a bit confusing. And also the pattern on his alt mode, it's a little too close like Jazz, because Jazz, like his alt mode is very iconic in that he just had that color design on like the straight middle of his alt mode, whereas Mirage was supposed to be a Formula Racer. And I feel like they could have designed the color pattern on the Porsche differently to differentiate from Jazz. I'm pretty sure they're gonna introduce Jazz in the new reboot, but I was like, I think from a first glance it's gonna be kind of hard to differentiate between the two of them, even though Jazz's color scheme is technically like white, black, and a little bit of blue. But if they're both gonna have the same color patterns on their alt mode, it's kind of weird, even if they are completely separate car designs, because I think Jazz is supposed to be like some sort of like Honda or Toyota. So yeah, Mirage looks great. I'm glad to see that they're bringing back their hologram abilities, because in the original cartoon there was like a few Autobots that had the ability to generate holograms, because they were mostly like for the stealth fighters, would it be Mirage. I think Hound had a hologram ability. I don't think Jazz was able to generate a hologram, but I think there was like a few others that were able to like make a separate hologram of themselves for like decoys or just like to trick the Decepticons and stuff. But here in the live action, they're giving Mirage an upgrade to his hologram, so he's able to generate like four other holograms. So it's like him and then four other versions of himself, which I think is pretty cool. I'm hoping they still give him his cloaking ability, because that's what he's known for in the original cartoon. Like that's why he's called Mirage, because he has the ability to cloak like Predator. So I'm hoping like he'll still be able to use that to some degree in the movie. It is kind of an OP ability, but he didn't really use it all that much in the original cartoon. However, he does hold the reputation for being the only Autobot in the history of the Great War to bring down a Star Cruiser by himself. So I don't know if he's gonna be that OP for the reboot, but it'd be kind of cool. Like he'd be kind of like a Legolas situation where he brings down that giant, like, I forgot that the elephant thing, and then Gimli's like, that's only just one. So that'd be kind of cool to see that in the live action. His robot mode does leave a lot to be desired, because when he's in robot mode in the original cartoon, like he's known for having like a blue head, and then you see like his body is prominently blue with like whites on the side, and his robot mode is the coloration looks a bit too close like Jazz. So I don't know how that's gonna work out if they eventually do introduce Jazz into the reboot. But I mean, he looks great. I mean, I'm hoping his robot form would be tweaked a bit more to look more like his G1 version. But I mean, from what I the small glimpses that I saw in the trailer, which I'm a little worried about because they only gave us glimpses of Mirage, but they didn't show like an entire like shot of him in robot mode. So I'm a little concerned about that because they only showed him in vehicle mode, which already upset people as how closely the design looks to Jazz. They confirmed Wheeljack, but I didn't see him at all. They did show like a picture of their vehicle modes on Instagram, and I think Jazz is supposed to be a Volkswagen, which is completely different from his original cartoon version. His cartoon version, it was like he was like a similar car design as Jazz, but he had like a red and green coloration to him. I don't know. The Volkswagen kind of makes more sense because Wheeljack's original Cybertronian alt mode kind of looked like a hatchback or a minibus, so it makes more sense for him to take on an alt mode like kind of like a Volkswagen bus. But I'm a little disappointed. We're not gonna see Ratchet here, but I'm guessing they decided to use Wheeljack because he's in the original cartoon. He does have some repair abilities, but he was more like a crackpot inventor, engineer type character. He wasn't like a medic or anything. So I don't know, maybe they're saving Ratchet for the next movie. Ratchet, Ironhide's another fan favorite that we're still waiting to see how they're gonna do him because his color scheme is very, very prominently red. I don't know how that's gonna work. He was red, and then he was also like a soccer mom van in the original cartoon. I'm not sure how that's gonna translate in the new live action reboot, but I mean, I have more faith that they're gonna be more faithful to the original cartoon designs in some respect. But I mean, Wheeljack being a Volkswagen bus is kind of okay. I'm very disappointed they decided to make Bumblebee into a Mustang again because I loved how he looked as a Volkswagen Beetle, which is his original alt mode in the original Transformer cartoon. So I mean, Bumblebee the movie, like it was great that we got to finally see him in using that alt mode. So I don't understand why they have to switch him back to Mustang because the only reason I see for switching him back to a Mustang alt mode was to like appeal to the Bayformers fans, but I'm like, they already have 5 movies. Why can't us classic G1 fans get our own set of movies? Like we barely had one movie with like the classic G1 designs. Although they kind of did drop the ball on Blitzwing. I do have to admit that was not a good look because the early articles on Bumblebee was that he was going to be fighting Starscream. The enemy looked like Starscream, the color scheme, the robot mode, it all screamed Starscream. And then for them to say, oh no, that's actually Blitzwing, I'm like, well, Blitzwing's color theme is supposed to be purple and I think peach. It was like an off yellow. And there is a concept of him with the robot design that he had in Bumblebee, but it uses his classic color scheme, and I thought it looked fine. Like he was only in the movie for 5 minutes or so, so it didn't really matter for him to blend in if he was just gonna be there to like hunt down Bumblebee. So I don't understand why didn't they use his like classic color scheme to really commit to him being Blitzwing and not Starscream. If you want to recycle his model for Starscream, okay, but I mean, again, if you're gonna commit to him being Blitzwing, commit to him being Blitzwing. Don't like tease people like, oh yeah, that's Starscream when it inherently not Starscream. Because first of all, that would be a little too early to introduce him, and second of all, you freaking killed him off in the first movie. Like, that's gonna piss off a lot of Decepticon fans right there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the new reboot, but again, they're slipping on Bumblebee, and then here I'm a little worried about how they're gonna portray Mirage because apparently he was in the Bayformers movies too, but they made him red instead of blue and white, and he went by the name Dino or Dino or something. So I'm like, okay. And then, of course, now that you're bringing in the Maximals, are we gonna see Tigertron? Which I kind of am fine if they leave out Tigertron, because he was kind of like a hippie, like beachcomber in the original cartoon. So I'm fine with them leaving him out entirely. Rat Trap, I hope they leave him out, or at least get him killed early on, because I don't think he's gonna translate well to live action. He's gonna be like a gigantic wombat-ish kind of rat. I don't think that's gonna work. And then of course, the big one, Dinobot. Are we gonna have Beast Wars Dinobot if you're gonna have the Autobots and Decepticons fighting their war? Because the Autobots have a team of fighters called the Dinobots. So how is Dinobot from Beast Wars gonna coincide with Dinobots, the dinosaur team? See, this is the issue I had with them putting Beast Wars in the middle of the Autobot and Decepticon war, because all the stuff that happened in Beast Wars happened way later after the Autobots and Decepticons have already passed on. So for them to have those names is fine, but if you're gonna use them for the live action reboot, there's really no way to explain that away unless you want to spend extra screen time towards explaining that away, or just give him a different name. But I don't know how you can rename Dinobot without him conflicting with the Dinobots. I mean, Dinobot was my favorite character in Beast Wars, but I don't see him being able to coexist with the Dinobots unless they make him part of their team, which is still gonna be weird. I know there's a Velociraptor Dinobot that was introduced in the comic books, but that was a female character and a completely different character entirely anyways. So yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work out. I mean, I would love to see Dinobot in live action, but I don't know how that's gonna work with the Autobot and Decepticons being the main like factions in the live action reboot. Okay, and then on the enemies, they're confirming the Terrorcons. So the Terrorcons are another subgroup in the Decepticon army, and they become combiner named Abominus. 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 I don't know. They had really weird names back then. But they also, I think they said that they're going to have the Predacons too. I mean, like I said, it would be great if they had the original Decepticon Predacons, because then that means the Maximals and the Autobots are going to team up to fight against two Decepticon combiners, which would be, this would be a great showdown. But again, does this mean we're not going to see the Beast Wars Predacons, which again would be fine with me. But yeah, I'm still unsure about them bringing the Beast Wars into the Autobot Decepticon war. Maybe it'll be better than expected. Judging from the Sonic movies, I have a little more hope in Paramount doing us G1 classic Transformers fans justice. I mean, at the very least, they recognize that the Bayformers were not very good movies, so I think they want to move past that. I'm I'm still disappointed that they didn't make Bumblebee like a hard reboot. They still wanted to tie it back to Bayformers for some reason. But yeah, looking forward to the new Transformers movies, and seeing where the cinematic universe is gonna take us. I don't know when they're gonna introduce Megatron, because I feel like that's probably gonna be like their phase one build up to like meeting and fighting Megatron. Who knows how many more movies that will take, but I mean, looking forward to what this new reboot will bring. So that'll be all for now. Till next time, this is Zero Raptor signing off. Laters.